Hello, this is Ufuk Tarhan. I'm a futurist and economist, and I'm also running a digital agency and a software company. Today, I'm here to make a very important interview with Mr. Amin Maalouf. I'm sure you know about him, but I would like to give a short information about him later on. Hello, Mr. Maalouf.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for this interview, which will let people know about your new book. Our Unexpected Brothers, Empedokles in Turkish, Empedokles'in Dostları. It is great honor and privilege for me to be one of the very first people who read it even before print and have this chance of talking about that precious book with you. And I also would like to thank your publisher, Yapı Kredi Yayınları, which published all your books in Turkey, and also big thanks to Mr. Ali Berktay, the translator, who enables Turkish-speaking people to read this valuable content. Thanks once more to you and Yapı Kredi Yayınları people. This is really great pleasure and honor for me, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy a lot. Do you want to say hello, and do you want to start for your first words to our audience?
Well, just to say hello to all our friends and readers in Turkey, and just to say I'm happy to meet them, although in a very special way because of the circumstances. We all meet through screens, but it's okay. We meet and we can discuss freely, and it's a pleasure for me to meet you through this screen and with this interview, which promises to be very interesting, I hope.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, as I said. And okay, let's start with the book. Let's give some short spoiler to our readers, to our audience. Book starts with a terrifying scene at a tiny islet along the Atlantic coast. The planet goes dark due to a sudden blackout. There was no internet, no electricity, no communication, no nothing at all. Only Alec, a middle-aged draftsman, and Eve, a mythical best-selling novelist, were living in the island. They were avoiding each other until that blackout day, and they were living in a self-protective loneliness. Planet and humanity were in severe danger. Then we follow a quite exciting story which refers to an important time in human history. The Athenian Miracle, along with my mythological names and happenings, we meet our unexpected brothers and new possibilities. It goes with gripping events and triggering thoughts till the last page. It was really so excited to read it. I think that much spoiler is enough. Do you want to add a bit more from your side?
Not much. I think it's exactly how it begins. The two main protagonists are in an island, very small island. They are the only inhabitants, and yet they don't speak much to each other. And then something happens. We don't know exactly at the beginning what is happening. So we discover very slowly through the journal, the diary, which is kept by the protagonist, Alec.
Thank you. And it was really interesting to read it. After reading all of your wonderful books, there was quite a difference between them and this one. And let's come to you a little bit. Of course, we are going to talk about the book and your opinion about past, future, everything. Many of our audience know Amin Maalouf and his books, and you can all, now I'm saying to all audience, to my thoughts, many more information, many more information by just Googling his name. Just Google and find who he is. So this time, I want to use this chance mostly concentrating on his new novel, which is also the first one after pandemic, but also himself. I just want to give my changed perception about Mr. Maalouf, because it was not like this before. And after I read this book, that means Our Unexpected Brothers, in Turkey, it will be published with the name Empedokles'in Dostları. I changed my mind. To me, he is now both didactic and romantic. It was more didactic before. He was pessimist, but on the other hand, this time he is very optimist. He establishes bridges between dream and reality. He connects past to the future and beyond that, according to me, indeed. He is great futurist now for me, and he makes his thoughts so clean and lean. And in short, he simplifies to think, analyze, and hope for the future. This book gave me all these feelings and thoughts. And Mr. Maalouf, few minutes ago, I made a short description about you just now. I made it with courage. Do you agree? Do you see yourself as a futurist? If it is yes or no, why do you think so? And do you want to add anything about you which is not said, known, or realized yet? Because I watched almost all interviews of you, and most of the time it was analyzing, discussing, or you were talking about your professional writer side. But as a person, we don't see so much. Please talk about these also this time, for the first time maybe. Now it's your turn.
Thank you very much. I think your description is very accurate. I would add that if I have to speak about myself, I would just say that from childhood, I have only had one passion: to watch the world, try to understand it, and then try to explain what I see and what I understood. So I would say that whatever I do enters in this scope. Mm-hmm. I am fascinated by human adventure. Mm-hmm. All what happens in the world, sometimes it is worrying, sometimes it is marvelous, sometimes it is sad, but it is always fascinating to observe. So I watch the world from, maybe I began 60 years ago, to watch the world, to listen to the news, to follow what is happening everywhere. And I find it fascinating today, like I found it fascinating when I was a child. So this is what I am, in fact. And all what I write is a way of transmitting what I see from the world. Sometimes it is about the past, sometimes even the distant past. Sometimes it is about what I see in the future, what I imagine. Sometimes it is through essays, trying to explain how the world is going, how it is, how it's working or not working. So all my life is devoted to that. So I don't know if I spoke enough about myself by saying that, but I think this is a sum up of what I am.
Thank you. For myself, your aim is reached at his target, because when I read your books and essays, they were always triggering me to think in another way, to analyze better. And as I've said, it is simplifying, because you are spending so much effort to analyze the world, watching and analyzing and trying to let people what's going on or to discuss. You're opening really very nice era for us to think about the world and humanity. So thank you for this. Really, it's so big efforts, and it helped us. For me, for instance, as a futurist, I always got reference from your books and essays a lot. Thank you. But I still could not get answer from your surrounding people. Who are you? Where are you exactly living? While you were doing these studies, who helped you, your family, your relationship, especially during this COVID-19 period? What were you doing? How it happened to you? That kind of information I really would like to hear from such a fascinating person.
You are right to ask the question. In a few words, as you might know, I was born in Lebanon about 72 years ago. I moved to France when I was 27, so almost 45 years ago. I moved to France because of the war in Lebanon, obviously. And I settled in France. I used to work as a journalist in Lebanon. My father already was a journalist. Mm-hmm. So when I moved to France, I worked also as a journalist. And at one point, I had to choose, because I was the director of a magazine, economic magazine. And at the same time, I was writing a novel, Léo Africain. Mm. So I had to choose, because I could not do both at the same time and try to do them well. So I had to choose. I decided to devote all my time to literature, and that was in 84, 85. Mm-hmm. To come to today, I am in my apartment in Paris. Mm-hmm. I have been practically all the time for the last 10, 12 months in this apartment, and especially in this small room where I have a lot of books, and I try to work. To be honest, I am worried, of course, about all what is happening around me. Sadly, I lost many friends throughout this passing year because of this pandemic. At the same time, on the professional level, I have not changed so much the way I work, because I spent anyhow I have always spent my time writing, mm-hmm. or reading, or trying to know what's happening everywhere in the world, and I continued to do it. Maybe with some more focus on the present crisis, but mm-hmm. I didn't change the way I live because of this pandemic.
Like many of the people, maybe. Thank you. And indeed, most of the people became look like you after pandemic, and you. I understood you continued your normal life as before. But anyhow, let's hope that it will be normal. What is normal? We can discuss about that, but let's hope it will be normal again. Thank you very much. And let's come to our book, Our Unexpected Brothers and Empedokles'in Dostları. You said in general way why you are writing, what are you trying to do to say to people. But why did you write this one? what prompted or inspired you to write this book? And as I've learned from other sources, you started to write it before pandemic, and maybe our readers, our audience may think that after pandemic you went into need to write such book, but you started before pandemic to write this story. And what was the main drive made you so excited to write it, even there was no pandemic and even we didn't have such a severe danger in front of humanity? I'm saying about the real pandemic, not the one that you describe in your book. So I ask this because also before you have always talked about the past in your previous novels. Past cultures, beliefs, civilizations were always at the center. Topics were mostly based on the idea of destruction, collapse, and finally, in this novel, you talk about the future, and you're also giving us a survival light for the first time. What has led you to the future, and while you are known as the master writer of historical novels? Besides, you were more didactic before, but now much more humanistic, positive, and emotional. Let's talk about this. Why?
Well, there are many questions here. I'll try to answer them. My interest for the past is not for the sake of the past. Even if I am interested in the past, what is profoundly interesting for me is the future. Where are we going? So the question that I have been asking myself for the last few years especially is, where are we going? What went so wrong in the history of humankind, and where are we going now? And this question has been very worrying for me for many years now. And my previous book was, its title was in French, Naufrage des civilisations, which is the shipwreck of civilizations. And it was translated in English, adrift, because the world is drifting. We don't know exactly where, but there is a real problem with our future. I think we might be going towards very, very catastrophic times. And this novel, I wrote it, as you said, entirely before this crisis. I finished completely writing it 2 years ago. And the idea of this novel was to imagine what might happen if we are a little optimistic. What might happen to save humanity from itself, in fact, to save it from what humanity is doing to itself. Because I feel that we need to get inspiration from moments of our past to try to save humanity and change its course. So this book, I used to work on it to find hope. This book is a book where I try to see a beam of light, because it is not easy today to find a beam of light. We have been drifting for the last decades. We could have gone in a different direction toward a world, a more harmonious world, a world where all people might find they can live as they are, without being discriminated against, without being expelled from their countries, without having to endure all kinds of hardships. And we could have gone in that direction. We have the possibility, thanks to development in science, in technology, in economy, we could have gone in that direction, but we are not going in that direction. We are going in a direction of confrontation, maybe of a new Cold War, maybe on a new arms race. We are in a world without world order. So the world is really drifting. And I try to imagine in this novel, somebody from the past coming to save the future. Some moment from human history, a moment, maybe a miracle moment, that might give us inspiration and save us from our folly.
Very good. Thank you for doing that. It is really a help for us. We need that. We really need to find or think in another way, which is possible. We still have time to do many things to survive. And let's come to exactly Friends of Empedocles. Who are they? Of course, they are the rescuers in the story. But who are they in your mind exactly, in your fiction? Or do you have such an exact imagination? For instance, are they future versions of new politicians, leaders? Maybe this is the reflection of your hope about the politicians and leaders who are leading the world. Are they a preview of future humanity? And is it a message which tells us being an advanced tech society and also humanistic people at the same time is possible? And additionally, why are they, I wonder this a lot, why are they negotiating with Americans? Do you mean that world's future is still the American, will be in the still American hands? If they succeed, the world will be fine. If not, the game might be over. Why, in your analysis, America is still in such a dominant role? Why didn't you consider other strong countries like China, Russia, etc.? I really wonder about this.
They speak with the dominant power of today, because although it is to some extent futuristic, this novel speaks of events that could happen tomorrow morning. It is not situated in a distant future. Mm-hmm. It is situated in today's world. So the idea, and maybe I would begin by saying, where do they come from in my mind? I have always been fascinated by moments in history in which things happen that are not expected and then disappear. I could cite a number of events that are concentrated in a few years or a few dozens of years. And then the world changes because of those events. One of those moments is what happened around Athens. It was not only Athens. It is called in history the Athenian Miracle, because it was the main city. But there were a number of places in what is today Greece and Turkey, because it was the same part of the world, and events happened with the appearance of a number of people, philosophers, historians, artists, tragedians, comedians, people who invented philosophy and tragedy, and it was to a certain extent democracy and historiography, etc. So these people who invented so many important things remained for maybe 70 years, and then they completely disappeared. And my idea was, and that's a novelist's idea, it's not a historian's idea that much, to say, if they disappeared, maybe they had not completely disappeared. Maybe somebody has remained hidden in our world. Maybe there was a population inspired by that miracle who remained in the world. And so most probably it cannot happen. But this is the privilege of novels, of imagination, to imagine that it could have happened. So this idea of a population that remained from those times and reappeared today has collided with another idea, which is the fact that our world is drifting, that we are completely in an impasse. We don't know where we are going. Mm-hmm. And at one point, a population arrives, and it brings to us a new hope because it did not stray from its original aims like we have strayed. It had developed its science without being overwhelmed by science like we are. Mm-hmm. So this was the idea from which this novel has emerged.
Very good explanation, because I prepared another question, which is saying that there is a kind of emulation to the Athenian Miracle, but that civilization has also collapsed, and it also could not be sustainable. They couldn't make it. How and why did you connect the possibility of rescued future to that period? And I got my reply. You said that your some remaining ones came and rescue us, and you mentioned Americans because we are talking about very near future at the same time. You're trying. Yeah, please.
One element of this novel, and it is a real preoccupation for me, is the fact that throughout history, some civilizations have been marginalized or defeated by others who had taken center stage. Of course, we all know of such civilizations, including the one in which I grew up. They have been marginalized by other civilizations. Another very striking example is the American pre-Columbian civilizations, like the Aztecs of Mexico.
Yeah.
What would happen if our civilization, and even more precisely, the most powerful and the most advanced powers in our civilization, what if they meet one day a civilization so more powerful than they are, that they would feel themselves like the Aztecs felt in the 15th century and 16th century. Yeah. That's why at one point they meet the Americans. And you might have noted in the book that somebody says, somebody from Latin America says, now the Yankees have their own Yankees.
Yeah.
They have been for so many years the power that marginalizes all others. And now there is another power that is marginalizing everybody, including the most powerful of today. So this idea that one day we, all of us, might encounter somebody who would make our civilization seem obsolete, this is an idea which also is somewhere in my mind, and and it appears in this book.
I got very clearly, and it is very important, especially nowadays. I'm sure you are observing the happenings in financial institutions in the United States, the stock situation, the digital attack, financial attacks, etc. We are having really an interesting days, and maybe the game is just starting in that way. So I'm sure you indeed. One thing in my mind still, besides friends of Empedokles have advanced technologies, especially in medical science, but they could still only achieve lengthening of life, but not yet achieve immortality. And I'm sure you heard about Mr. Ray Kurzweil, and he claims of technological transhumanism, which says that is an illness until 2050s, around this time, we will be able to heal that illness, that means death, through bio and nanotechnology. And we will replace damaged cells and organs or prevent them even before birth, etc. So he gives us another opinion about immortality. But in this book, that was not so. And do you stipulate, forget about immortality. Immortality is unattainable, and please try to do your best while you are still mortals.
No, I think it is wise to say that at this point we don't know. Mm-hmm. We have seen the progress of medicine, and in the present state of medicine, it is obvious that there is a ceiling, a limit. We imagine that people might live until 100, 120 seems to be approximately the limit. Yeah. But we cannot from today say there will be no breakthrough in this direction. For example, the process of getting old is a physiological process. Our body gets older, our cells, and it is thinkable that one day science would be able to control the process of aging. Now, this is a very delicate question, because for human beings who are mortal, who have always been mortal, and for whom mortality has always been an issue, for them, the idea of immortality carries so many things about life, about religion, about everything. So it is, I think, to envisage today what will be the future is a bit much too early. There is a saying in English, say, we will cross that bridge when we reach it. So we are not yet there. Maybe it's possible that science one day will make life longer and longer and longer. We might be able to control aging, to change elements of the body, to all kinds of things are thinkable, because if you see how science and medicine had progressed in the last 40 or 50 years, just think what would be the situation in 100 years. or in 500 years, it is totally outside our scope of thinking, because we cannot imagine. No, you ask me how you would have imagined the world of today. 40 years ago, I would have written on a paper things that today would seem silly. 40 years ago, I did not imagine, for example, that the Soviet Union would disappear just like that. Maybe they had problems, but it was unthinkable to see it disappear like that. All the instruments, including the one we are talking through today, all that didn't even exist, or even nobody had thought about it. So things change so much that to say what will be the world like in 40 years, it's totally impossible. For me, at least, I think we should deal with the world as it is today.
Yeah.
Try to solve the problems, and there are so many problems of today, and just be open-minded to say, in the future, there would be other elements to deal with, and we'll see in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, this is really a very interesting subject, why people are imagining immortality, but on the other side, seeing the problems of today, having the problems. Many people don't want to live anymore. They don't want to live so long because the aging is not going well right now. Yes, people are living long, but the conditions are not cannot be said as living exactly. They're having tons of pills and etc. So I think it's the wish of maybe people, humanity would like to live long to find who are we. Maybe this is a prolongation of lifetime to find out who are we really and what's happening in world and what is the game. So maybe this is I think in that way, but I think you would like to say some more thing about that.
It's a very, very interesting to discuss these things, because we need to think about them even if they're not here. For example, about the people not wanting to live longer. That depends entirely on the quality of life.
Yes.
If people can live for over 100 years with good health, with good mind, there is no problem. So if they are in good shape, they might want to live forever, and that's very legitimate. Then the future carries so many things that we would like to know about. No, I told you in the beginning that I watch the world. I'm fascinated by all what happens in the world, in all fields, in politics, in science, in all kinds of fields, and it is like you are in a theater and you are watching a movie, and the movie is fascinating, and you would like to stay forever if it's not finished, and the movie will never be finished. So one day we have to get out because we're too old, we're dying. But if we have the choice, and if you are in good shape, we would like to watch that movie forever.
Yeah.
So I would like to know what the world would look like in 50 years or in 100 years. It's fascinating.
Me too.
And you, as a futurist, you would like to see what the world would look like.
The space is looking
one or
at
two
us.
and 10 generations, and it is legitimate.
Yes.
So if we can be there and watch that's marvelous.
I agree with you totally. And but coming to coming to actual situation, especially after pandemic, everybody focused on the future more than ever, and awareness of sustainability raised. I mean, the world is in a quite different mindset now. And there are organizations, indeed they were, but we understand their reason of being more precisely, like United Nations, that have been formed for world peace just after the Second World War. And there are UNDP Sustainable Development Goals and 2030 challenges, which focus on 17 areas of humanity to be evaluated. This is really a hot topic in the world right now. Can United Nations be the actual version of Friends of Empedocles? What do you think about 17 goals? Are they similar to Friends of Empedocles' proposals for salvation? Do you link them in some way?
I'd like to begin by saying that the moment we are living through is the ideal moment to envisage the future, because something very rare has happened.
Yeah.
Never before the world has come to a standstill just like that, everywhere in the world.
Yes.
So this is a moment of meditation, of reflection. What will be the future? And we know that the future will be different, and things have to be change. So we don't know exactly how they are going to change, but they will change. The ideas that are carried by the friends of Empedocles are very sensible ideas. Of course, I put my ideas in their mouths, but I think they are ideas that first we have to be in control of the evolution of science, not be carried by the evolution, and not to be distorted, not to have our history distorted. I think one of the main characteristics of today's world is that we have the possibility to solve all kinds of problems. That's a huge privilege of which we are not taking advantage. We are not solving the problems while we have the possibility of solving.
Yes.
We are fighting against each other like mad tribes, while we have the possibility of giving prosperity to everybody.
Yeah.
We are in a world without any kind of order, while we are able to have a world order that functions without having to invent all kinds of things. And I agree with you, the institutions like United Nations and others are perfectly adapted to what happened. Of course, they have to be modified, they have to be improved, but we don't have to invent all kinds of things. These institutions can be useful. We have the possibility of consulting with everybody, including through these new instruments. We can be in contact with all the world. We can decide on the future of our planet. We can take measures. We can solve problems. We can avoid wars. All this can be done,
yes.
and we are not doing it.
Yes.
And that's why I like to imagine that somebody might come and in a way impose on us to do it, force us to be wiser, to be more responsible, to not to destroy our planet, because until now we are going toward destruction. We are not saving the planet. We know there are problems and we are not trying really to solve them. We talk about them, of course. We talk about solving problems, but in reality, we're doing nothing that might change that game.
Yeah, exactly. But to hope a rescuer who will give us the way of rescuing, etc., may cause a laziness. But after reading your book and always thinking that rescuer is us, each one of us. And I made this connection between UNDP's 17 focusing areas, sustainable development goals. If each one of us memorize this as a homework, because that 17 points, areas are the ones really that will rescue us. If we do the right things, we will act accordingly to survive to sustain our future, sustain our planet, humanity, etc. So I want to draw attention to that point. With the pandemic, all of the world could memorize and learn and act accordingly for hygiene, wearing mask, and social distance in few weeks. Immediately, whole world. Why not that 17 areas? If we can think in the same way, act in the same way, and if we can do that, although before pandemic, if we go to someone and say that you will not get out home for a certain time, you will not go to work, you will not go to the school, and you will not do this, and you will wear a mask, and you will not shake hand, you will not see your family, parents, etc., we will get a big no. It cannot be possible, and I don't accept it. It is freedom. There is such thing which is freedom, type of thing. Now we are like pets. We are at homes. I'm suggesting that, hey, be wiser and read that 17 areas. This is a homework for the humanity, for survival, and take it as serious. So I think we are in your book made me to think about this, and I really thank you to you once more by giving this hope and think once more. So I think we are agree on that.
Absolutely. I think we need to believe that the future is in our hands, and although in this novel there is this population that is a savior for us, but this population, it is us. In fact,
yes,
it's up to us to change the course that the world is taking.
Yes.
And I think the future is totally in our hands. We have to be aware of it. And as you said, one of the main lessons of what is happening today is that when we feel that the emergency, we act accordingly. So, and the emergency is everywhere. And the emergency in all these fields. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was a American philosopher, William James, who heard from so many people that idea which still circulates, that we need a good war so everybody would be mobilized, and he said, no, war is awful. War is suffering, is death, is violence. We need a moral equivalent to war.
Yes.
And that is the main idea. We need a moral equivalent to war. We need to be mobilized. We need to be to have an acute awareness, as if we were fighting a war. But we don't need a war. we need to be aware of what must be done to save, not to save humanity as an indistinct entity, to save us, to save our children, our friends, our grandchildren, to save all the people we love, and we still have the possibility to give them a beautiful future. We still have that possibility, and this is the hope I would like to maintain.
Thank you. Please keep going. We need to hear and think about this. And coming to the end, I don't want to spend so much time of you. That means, are we in a kind of technological renaissance and or in a kind of big reset? That means the main philosophy is dataism. Data is becoming really very important and the helpful factor people to manage everything. Dataism. And behind all these, that we live in this shaped with data. How do you see the very near future? For instance, can we call and describe the world's new system as sustainable capitalism? Because people are also in need of defining something. We are we want to get rid of capitalism. It's the big enemy or the reason for everything. Can that be the new name of the new system that humanity is trying to reform? Sustainable capitalism. What do you think about that? Because it is started to be mentioned.
Well, what you're saying is also very wide, so it would be difficult to answer a very precise way. I would make three remarks. One is that science and technology do not give us a direction. They give us the tools, but we have to decide in which direction we go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we cannot expect from science and technology to tell us where to go and what to build. Mm-hmm. The second thing is that one of the problems of today, and this is linked to a certain extent to the big data, is that freedom is limited by a world in which whatever we do is controlled, is monitored, and this is a trend that more and more is depriving us from what used to be privacy, what used to be personal freedom. We cannot move today from one place to another without being monitored. We cannot write anything or speak anything without the risk of being controlled and heard and listened to. And this is a frightening world we are moving into. And frankly, I'm not sure we can get out of it, because it is a trend that is very, very difficult to reverse. But we need to maintain an awareness and not become just marionettes that are manipulated by others or used for any purpose. As for what you're saying about sustainable capitalism, I think the lesson from what happened first with socialism, then in the last 40 years with a certain vision of capitalism, I think we need to have a balanced attitude. The market is important. The laws of the market are important, but they're not everything. We cannot submit everything to the laws of the market. And one of the problems of today, of this pandemic in many countries, is that the laws of the market and the laws of profit were applied to hospitals and to all that sector, and this has weakened that sector and provoked unnecessary hardships and death in so many countries. So now we need to understand that the laws of the market cannot be paramount. They cannot decide in all fields. They have been much too important in the field of health, in the field also of arts. Yeah. The place of money, of the market for art is much too important today. I think we have to admit a certain degree of market rules, but we cannot submit everything to the rules of the market. Yeah. In so many things, we need to remain wise and to remain balanced and to always keep in mind that the goal is human being. Yeah. We cannot submit the fate of human beings just to ideas or economic principles or anything else. The most important thing is the human person and the dignity of the human person.
Yeah, exactly. I think the fear of surveillance or data and everything is just because of confusion in our minds. Because once before we solve this confusion in our minds and before we find new moral consensus, a consensus on what is being good human, humanity, if we cannot find common platform on this, I think we are afraid of transform all these wrongdoings to data. Indeed, we are not afraid of data or surveillance. We are afraid of ourselves, like you said. Human is the enemy of human, indeed, because we are teaching the artificial intelligence and robots and everything. We are just transforming ourselves to them. So we are not okay yet. And before finding best version of us or better version of us, if we leave our control to data, that means that will not be a solution for us again. I think that's the main scary point for humanity. Thank you very much. And now, last two questions, and I may have the replies of these questions in a very short way, if you prefer. A very classical one, of course. What are your personal hopes and plans for future? Can you please describe a picture of world's coming 10 to 15 years? A clear picture. What do you hope or what do you imagine? A real imagination, not a fiction.
Well, it's not easy to answer very very quickly to such a question. I think in the immediate future, I hope we will get out of this crisis, because it has been really very hard for so many people, and I sincerely hope we will put it behind us in a few months. I hope also that we would have learned from this crisis that we need to reflect on the future of our world, to learn how to work together, because one of the lessons of this crisis is that we were not able to learn to work together, although we were facing the same type of the peril, and we were not able to unite. Even countries that are very close to each other were not able to work together to face this common danger. So I hope that we will be able to learn from this experience, and from other experiences like what happened in the United States and elsewhere, to have a more decent world, a world which is much more open to consultation, to consensus, and to revive a sense of universalism, which is unfortunately fading today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great reply indeed. It was really a wide question, but you made it so simple again, and clean and lean. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really a discussion that I don't want to end, but everything has an end yet. So the last words, what do you want to say as a last word about why should people read our Unexpected Brothers or Empedokles'in Dostları, and your advice, suggestions, tips that help each one of us to reshape a better future? Indeed, you made so many give so many advices and tips, but why should people read this marvelous book?
Well, it's obvious that a writer that writes a book wants people to read it. And I would add specifically for this book that I would love to see the readers, and especially my Turkish readers, use this book to think about today's world and the future. Because this book, although it is a novel, it is also a way of reflecting on our times and times to come, and how to get out of the ordeal we are living through. Not only the ordeal linked to the pandemic, but the whole situation of a world where harmony is fading, where universality is fading, and a world which could go in the best of directions, which could offer so much to everybody, and yet a world which is going toward confrontation and destruction and all kinds of ordeals.
Thank you. Nothing can be said on top of this. That was a great ending. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you sincerely.
Really, really, for this enlightening and inspiring discussion. And I hope everybody will read this preview of the future. Indeed, it is really very important novel and content. Everybody should really read it. So before closing our interview, I would like to say something to our audience. Dear friends who watched us, first of all, thank you. But please share this video and tell people that Amin Maalouf has a new story about a better future to discover. Its name is Our Unexpected Brothers, Empedokles'in Dostları. Please read and share this. That means everybody should enjoy this great story and hope for the future. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much to you, Mr. Maalouf, and see you all in a better future soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.